I'd like to extend my sincerest thanks to Ms. Lab and to all the people who have helped to bring this event to fruition, from the candidates to the timers and the greeters. I'm happy to see a few people in the audience today. I know we all have our own reasons to attend. For myself, beyond my genuine interest in community and politics, this project will count towards my Gold Award. For my government classmates, this will deliver the political participation credit that we all need, as long as you make sure your name is on the list by the door, which Renee should have. However, there's so much more than credit to be gained from local community engagement. By connecting with the people in power in our city, we can learn how to make the changes necessary for the future that we run. In a district that many of us live in, especially as we come of age to vote, we can be selective about who represents us. The historical foundations which we learn about in class are useless unless we educate ourselves and use what we know to better the lives of our community members. Let's go into some background on the race so that we understand what is going on. The Sacramento City Council consists of a mayor elected by all city voters and 8 council members elected to represent separate districts in the city. Our current mayor is Darrell Steinberg, and he's been our mayor since 2016. Every 10 years after the US Census, the city of Sacramento must reestablish the boundaries for city council districts in response to census data. Our latest redistricting took effect on December 16, 2021. As a result of redistricting, our school's address is in District 7, but many of the neighborhoods which our students come from land in District 5. District 5 encompasses so many important communities in Sacramento: Oak Park, Tahoe Park, Elk Grove, Rancho Cordova, and more. It's a wide-reaching and significant district, which is why our choice of representative is so crucial. To my left, we have Tamiko Heim, and to my right, we have Katie Maple. Let's get into the format of today's forum. Each candidate will make a 2-minute opening statement, have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question, and make a 1-minute closing statement. Timers, Gally and Mallory, will give a warning when there are 30 seconds left. Candidates will respond in rotating order to questions sourced ahead of time from local high school students. Let's get started with Katie's opening statement.
Awesome. Can everybody hear me okay?
I thought I can project my voice. Oh, there we go.
Thank you so much for having me here. As mentioned, my name is Katie Maple, and I'm a candidate for Sacramento City Council in District 5. I'm actually really excited to be here in this building because I'm also, in addition to my various other roles, I'm also a substitute teacher. So I actually was substituting for Mr. Miller's art class here just a few weeks ago, so some of you might recognize me from there. I always like to start out with my personal story for why I'm running and why I got involved in community in the first place, and that's based on me leaving home at the age of 16. I had a really rough young life. I left home and I put myself through college and slept in my car when I was younger, so I've experienced being homeless as a youth. And that's what's really driven my passion for making sure that we have systems around us that work for people regardless of where they come from, and no matter what their status is in terms of their income or whether or not they were housed. And so I've channeled that energy in a lot of different ways in my life. During the beginning of the pandemic, I was serving on my neighborhood association board in Oak Park and helped form what's called the Oak Park Cares program. We got funding and we were able to do small dollar grants to our neighbors who are struggling in need. That kind of direct action, community action, is what I believe is what we need as a community to come together to fix the problems that we have, not just have government come in, but work together as individuals and community members. I also co-founded a nonprofit called Sac Soup, or Solidarity of Unhoused People, during the beginning of the pandemic. I was volunteering for another organization. I was asking around to people on the streets whether or not they knew we were in a pandemic, whether or not they had somewhere that they could wash their hands, whether or not they had masks or a place to shelter in place, and the answer that I got was no, they didn't know that. And so we formed a nonprofit that has people who cook meals, distribute them, give survival gear, and provide needed resources to people on the streets every single day. That now has 500 volunteers, so I'm really proud of the work that we did there. And my overarching goal for running for office is making sure that we can fix some of these big issues that face us, including homelessness. And so I'm so grateful to be here today and looking forward to answering your questions.
Thank you so much, Katie. Let's go to Tamiko's opening statement now.
Can you hear me? Is everything okay? Great. Well, thank you guys for having me today. I'm very excited to be here as well. My name is Tamiko Heim, and I am running for City Council District 5. I am excited to be here a little bit differently because I actually took government in this school. So I understand your pain, ladies and gentlemen. I actually took it because I didn't want to fail at Johnson. So Thank you all for being here today. Well, I was born and raised in Sacramento. I love this city and definitely wanted to give back to this city. My family and I have deep roots in this city, and so I have started working for the state for the last 20 years. I worked my way up at the age of 22 as an account clerk, all the way to the infrastructure planning manager, and while I was working, I've always been volunteering for the city. I volunteer for programs like Black Child Legacy Campaign, where we work on making sure mothers, kids have resources and to get themselves right in the community. I've worked for women's groups like Sacramento Women Achieving Greatness, where we work on financial literacy and how to really hone your voice. I co-founded my neighborhood association, and I've also been the active transportation commissioner for the district. And what that does is help you guys get around the streets, get you those crosswalks you need, the sidewalks you need, and those bike lanes to get around town. So why am I doing this? I want to make sure that the city and you guys all have connectivity in the city. Getting around town is very difficult if there is no infrastructure. I want to make sure that it's economic expansion and inclusion, to make sure that when you guys graduate high school, there are programs and there are jobs and there are things available for you that if you want to stay in Sacramento, that you have access to it. And lastly, I wanted to work in public safety because I have been a person who's always volunteered in this community to help kids when there is third-party homicide, to help adults and help people really get on the right foot. So I want to work with community-based organizations and continue to work with the police. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to continue in rotating order, so we're going to go back to Tomiko for the first question, which is just kind of a softball to let you guys, or let the audience get to know you better. And it's, what's your favorite part of living in Sacramento?
Oh gosh, the food. Like, honestly, because I'm from here, everywhere in the city I have somebody I'm related to, and so I can pretty much eat and sleep. Eat, sleep, and watch TV. The food, the family, the fun, that's truly probably the best part of Sacramento. And everybody knows everybody. I always say, I know you guys don't know who Kevin Bacon is, but the older folks do. I always say I'm 7 degrees away from somebody, so I'm Kevin Bacon in these streets.
Thank you, Tomiko. Let's go to Katie.
That's a tough one. I have to agree also with food, but I would say that I love all the resources that we have here. I'm big into the outdoors. I hike, I backpack, I ride my bike, and I live just right next to McClatchy Park, and it's an amazing resource that, you know, we do picnics out there, we walk dogs, we bring like our friends' kids, like bring their kids over and we just play in the park, and I just love that. I think there's so many amazing parks. There's the American River Parkway, where there's the bike trail, there's so many great activities to do in Sacramento, and I just love that. I can be outdoors every day, even if it's, 100-something degrees outside, sometimes that's tough, but I just love doing that, and I think that we really need to invest in those spaces more, make sure that we have those resources for generations to come.
Thank you. Starting with Katie, our next question is, what do you bring to the Sacramento City Council, and how will you work effectively with your fellow City Council members?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, in addition to the things that I mentioned in my opening statement, I have a really long history of working in and around government. So my background, when I first graduated from UC Davis, I went and worked for a nonprofit called California Forward, where I worked and did good governance policy, elections, campaign finance reform, and then I went and worked in the state legislature. I worked as an advocate there. I represented nonprofits. I did vegan animal welfare issues, and then also worked on legal cannabis. And then for the last 3 years, I started my own consulting business and work with businesses to help them get permitted. So I have a lot of experience working in and around state and local government. I think that makes me very well suited to come into this role because I have experience getting things done.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Tomiko.
All right. I know I look young and great, but I have 2 decades of government experience. I've worked from anywhere from accounting to budgets to infrastructure planning. So I bring a wealth of knowledge when it comes to contracts, budgets, and just personnel, all that boring office stuff. But I also understand working in community. I've done a lot of volunteering on my private time and just working with community and working with different community leaders and pastors to ensure that you have safe streets. So I bring not only just that knowledge, wealth, and also, connection. I've lived in this city all my life, so I can pretty much get us what we need in these streets. Yeah.
Thank you. This one is in response to two similar questions that I received on the Google form that I used to collect questions. And it's, what do you consider the most significant challenges facing high schoolers, and how will you address them if elected? Or a student asks, how would you improve my experience as a high schooler in terms of my learning/social emotional environment? You may respond to either or both, starting with Tamiko.
Okay, a couple of things. I know that depending on where you are in your school years, sometimes when you're looking to go to college and you want to stay around in Sacramento, there is a hard time getting those classes you need to finish school, finish college. And so really, truly just trying to work and partner with the school district to open up that summer school programs back up, because I know it changed a lot when my daughter was in high school, to where you can only do it if you were missing credits. But when I was in high school, we used it to get out of classes during our regular years. So really work with those school leaders and talk to them and tell them that this is what you're trying to do, because you may not want to go, all the way up to your senior year. I went 4 years, but I could have finished my junior year because I went to 2 different schools and had more credits than I needed. So there are times where you're able to, graduate early and start work or start college classes down the street at Sac City. Really opening that partnership up between Sac City and you all, so that maybe you can get some of those classes early, so that when you transfer or when you go off to your 4-year, you're ready. How to make it easier for you during the day. Make sure you have those mental coaches that you need. Continue to be an advocate for you. Get that after-school programming that you need, prevention that you need, and vote yes on L.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go to Katie.
Yeah, I think being in the classroom and really working with students over the last few months has shown me that mental health is a really big issue that's facing students right now, and resources related to that. We know that social emotional learning has been a big challenge for students after the pandemic. We had people who were staying home, they had their struggles, at home, and then they didn't have the resources that they needed over those years. And so there's a struggle for students to come back and get readjusted into a space. And so I'm really interested in making sure that we have ways for students to access mental health care and other treatment services through their schools. As you probably know, we're not ready to be school board members, so we don't have direct oversight on the district budget, but I do think that there's a partnership that's needed there. I'm really proud to be endorsed by the Sacramento Teachers Association, because I think there's a lot of work to be done to work together with teachers, the school district, and city council and other places to make sure that we have a budget that reflects the needs of students and ensures that they have those needed resources like after-school programs, and mental health care treatment in the schools. And so I think that will be one of the big issues for me.
Thank you so much. Let's go to our next question, starting with Katie, which I received from our Google form, which is, what do you consider the best plan of action for our current policing system?
That's a really good question. So I've been pretty outspoken about the need for police reform in Sacramento. I think that there are a lot of instances in our city where we have seen, especially in the neighborhood that I live in Oak Park, where there have been instances of people, having extreme use of force on them. Living in Oak Park, I see helicopters overhead all day long, most days of the week, and we've seen that there has been, an increase in crime, an increase in violent crimes in particular, and gun violence. So my philosophy in general is that what we're doing right now, the status quo, is not working. We know that because we see it around us, right? We see that rising crime. What I believe is that we need to be investing not just in response. Police have a really important job, they respond to crime. We need to make sure that they have the tools to do that, but also that we're investing in prevention. To me, that means making sure that we're investing in community-based organizations to reduce gun violence. There are many of those in the district that are doing great work with youth to help them get them off the streets, get guns off the streets, but they're not resourced. They don't have the money that they need, because most of them are doing it with their own money. So I would love to see the city invest in programs like that, invest in prevention, invest in mental health care and social workers, because I think we need to address those root causes of why people commit crimes if we're ever going to see a reduction over time.
Thank you, Katie. Let's go to Tamiko.
Okay. 2 things I think for me is accountability and prevention. What we have right now with police is, one, they're understaffed, and they're understaffed because they just don't have the recruits. Not because they don't have the money, but they just don't have people that are working for the current Sacramento Police Department. Their recruitment needs to be better, and they know this. We also need the accountability. When things happen, they need to be accountable for the things that are happening in what they're doing. We have a police commission. I would definitely like to see more emphasis working with the police commission. But then I also want to see more access to the community-based organizations that now are under the police department that just happened. So I have been working in Sacramento for a long time with some of those community-based organizations, and they are just now going under the police department to get their funding. And so I would like to continue to see them work together as they have for years to prevent some of these things that are happening on the street. Because not only do they prevent crime from happening ahead of time, but once crime happens, they also go out there and help prevent that retaliation that could possibly happen. So I want to continue to work with the community-based organizations, and then also continue to work with police, because together we can solve some of these issues. And also, if you guys are in the Oak Park area, there is a peace walk that happens every Thursday with some of the pastors in the community. If you ever want to come out there and walk, you're welcome to. Every Thursday at 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Tamiko. Let's go back to you with our next question. How will you address Sacramento's large unhoused population?
Oh, to me, okay. Well, with the unhoused population, I think there's a couple of things that I look to do. One, in our district, we have quite a few, I keep saying encampment, we have quite a few shelters, and I want to continue to work in those shelters to make sure that they are benefiting the people that are in there. What I mean by that is I want to make sure we have those wraparound services and they're actually working. I also want to make sure that not only do we have those wraparound services, we have a caseworker and to work on those soft skills, meaning teaching people once they get in a house how to pay their bills online, how to get a job, how to train themselves, where do they go get training, if they have an entrepreneur spirit, where do they go to really truly get that mentorship that they need. I want to continue to work on things like that, so not only do we get people out of the shelter and into a home, but actually on their feet and in the right direction. And then continue to work in services, and as we get more people, we get them out to make sure that they are getting the things that they need. But we need to partner with our county partners, and which I'm happy to be endorsed by a couple of them, to make sure that we have those mental services, those drug treatment programs, and also any, job training programs to get them on their feet.
Thank you. Let's go to Katie.
Yeah, so this is an area that I know a lot about, just having done work in this space for several years, but also in my personal experience. But I think having some background on this is really important. Right now, the city and the county don't work together almost at all on this issue. And that's the reason why we've seen a 70% increase in unhoused folks on our streets since 2019 when we did our last point in time count. It's absolutely devastating to me. And it's a big reason why I decided to run for office. When I read in the Sacramento Bee earlier this year that 200 people died on their streets, I couldn't believe it. It was heartbreaking, and especially being the capital city of the 5th largest economy in the world, I couldn't wrap my mind around that. And so I think that there's a need for urgent action, and that the reason why this hasn't happened is there isn't that partnership. Right now, the city does everything it can. Right now, our budget is. The city manager came out and said recently that if we continue to fund the beds that we have currently for shelter, and we cannot add anything more to that, and we could be into a $40 million deficit within 3 years. And so that means that we need to form a partnership with the county, because their budget is 7 times larger, and they have responsibility for mental health care and drug and alcohol treatment, among other things. So I would love to see a formalized partnership where they are pooling their resources together and they're creating a strategic action plan, which is something that we have not done in this region. You cannot fix a problem if you don't first figure out what your problem is and how you're going to solve it. And so that's step one. And I think that that's really exciting that we have new people that are joining the city council and the county board of supervisors. Hopefully there will be new energy and an ability to work together collaboratively.
Thank you. Let's go back to Katie for a question that I got from the League Forum, which I thought you guys both had really interesting answers to, so I thought it'd be beneficial to hear. City Measure L on the ballot amends the city charter to allocate an amount equivalent to 40% of the cannabis operations tax toward a children's fund. What are your views on Measure L? Let's go to Katie.
Yeah, so I'm supporting Measure L. I actually want to quote our current council member. I heard him at a debate on this topic recently, and he said, "You know who doesn't have a union? Kids." So, and he's right. So often our city budget, when we hit hard financial times, one of the first things to go is our investment in youth. And because young people very rarely have a voice in these discussions, they don't have lobbyists, they don't have unions, they don't have organizations that are pushing to make sure that these programs are funded, they're often the first to go, and that's just not where we need to be. We need to be in a space where we have a consistent set of funding for these programs so that you all have the resources that you need, whether that's investing in our parks, making sure that these nonprofits that are working to reduce gun violence, for example, and many other things. And so I'm excited about Measure L. I'm out knocking on doors every day, and I see their lawn signs everywhere. So I'm hopeful that it's successful, and I think it's going to be a great benefit to the city.
Thank you. Let's go to Tomiko.
Measure L for me, I think, I grew up in the city, so I know the city services that were happening when I grew up. And then I also raised my daughter in the city, so I know the city services that were gone when she grew up. So raising my daughter in the city, and when there was a preschool, full-day preschool program and start after-school program was a godsend to me. I was able to work a full-time job. I was able to grow my career, all because I had services. And if people do not have services, they will continue to work to stay on systems that will not get them anywhere. So I believe in providing systems, providing programs for youth, for parents, so that you all have someplace to go, to have preventative methods for you not to get in trouble, to keep you off the streets. There are so many things that can happen with Measure L. That would be great. I mean, sometimes, I know you guys want to hang out, but there are also programs that would be great and beneficial for you all in your later years that Measure L could resource. Training programs, clubs, all of these things can be done through Measure L. And I can tell you, as a young mom, I had a daughter right out of high school, programs to help me keep my job is something that somebody that you may know needs. So I would definitely say, please vote yes on Yelp.
Thank you. This is again a combination of similar questions I received. I think a lot of people are curious about how we're going to face this in our area. What are your goals in terms of the climate crisis and more specifically the drought? Let's go to Tomiko.
Say it one more time.
What are your goals in terms of the climate crisis and the drought?
What are my goals in terms of the climate crisis and the drought? Well, interesting. So one of the goal is, one of my major platforms is connectivity, right? And with connectivity, that is truly infrastructure. And Sacramento City is a really hard place to get around unless there is connectivity. If you want to see less cars on the streets, we need bike lanes. If you want to see less cars on the streets, we need functioning bus systems. If you want to see less cars on the streets, we need the infrastructure for you to feel safe walking on these streets. And so that is a key to me, is to making sure that we can get around. So that's one of the climate goals I think that Sacramento City truly needs to invest in and ensure that we can get around and have clean air.
Thank you. Let's go to Katie.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've noticed, especially, there's a disconnect even from people my age, and I'm pretty young, I'm 31. If I'm elected, I'll be the youngest person on the council. But even from my age to students that are in high school now, is the things that people are prioritizing or that they say are the biggest issues. Without a doubt, when I talk to young people, they say that climate change is one of the biggest issues that they see in our world and that it's impacting your future. And that's right. And so I'm really proud to be endorsed by the Sunrise Movement. I am, and I've taken a pledge that we want to do an ordinance to do a Green New Deal here in Sacramento. And for me, that means all the things that Tomiko said. We have to make sure that we are building on our infrastructure for bike lanes, for making it more walkable and bikeable. We also need to really invest in our public transportation systems and our light rails. We have to find ways to get around and move away from car travel. And that's one of the biggest things that a local government, a city, can do to to help combat climate change is ensuring that we're creating more walkable and bikeable communities and that quality public transit that's going all throughout the city. I also really focus on air quality. So there's a lot of neighborhoods in this district that have some of the worst air quality in the region. So we have to be making sure that we're monitoring that and that we're looking into ways that we can reduce that over time. One example of that is near the County Executive Airport. The neighborhood that surrounds that has the worst air quality. And that's probably due in part to a lot of the planes that are taking off to and fro from there. And so I'm really interested in looking at ways that we can clean that area up and work with the airport there to reduce the air. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Thank you. That was unexpected. We kind of just talked about this, but my next question is, in a city like ours, effective transportation is crucial. What do you think of Sacramento's current transit situation? Let's go to Katie.
Yeah, so as someone who, I love to travel, and I've been to some cities, not just in the US, but overseas as well, that have really incredible public transportation systems, where in fact almost nobody's using a car because it doesn't make any sense to do that. They're hopping on the train, they're going to work, they're taking the rail to go to school, they've got bus lines, and it's just a really incredible vibrancy that comes with that, not just for reducing the emissions from that and creating opportunities for people to get where they need to go, but also it supports small businesses. There's actually research that shows that when you have quality public transportation, it increases the amount that people are going to small businesses and spending their money at their local bodega or shops. So it's great for the local economy as well. And so I would say Sacramento's current system is not great. And I think most people would agree on that. We don't have the kind of public transportation that's getting people to the places where they need to go when they need to do it. Our ridership rate for SAC-RT is incredibly low. And I think we need to do a lot of work to ensure that we're creating public transportation systems where people can actually use them and make sense for them. And that it's showing up at the time that they need it to. They can rely on it to get to work on time. They can rely on it to get to school on time. And that's going to take investment. That means that we're going to have to really shift our thinking away from building infrastructure surrounding cars and really have those funds and that energy go towards public transit and rail. So that's what I'm going to be focused on if elected.
Thank you. Let's go to Tamiko.
Some of our lines are from the 1950s. The reality is some of our bus lines are from the 1950s. So in order for us to get around and make sure we're thinking about how we get around town is really truly reimagining Sacramento. Right now, the way our infrastructure is, it is not at all adequate for us to just rely on bus transportation. If you want to grocery shop, if you want to take your kids to school and you go to work, especially as a young parent, it's just not. So we have to continue to advocate for and write letters and talk to the RT and tell them what we need. We need to be able to get around town. It's poor. I used to work downtown. And so a lot of and what I had to do, honestly, is I would have to take my daughter to a family member's house in the morning, then drive to a bus stop and get on a bus just to go downtown. And so what is that saving, right? And so one of the things I want to do, of course, is to be on that board to make sure that I'm talking to the people who are running these lines and telling them my lived experience. This is not feasible and this does not work for everybody in this city.
Thank you. Our next question is, youth mental health has taken center stage in recent years. What do you believe are the underlying causes of the mental health crisis, and how do you plan to address it? Let's go to Tamiko.
Oh, wow. What do I believe are the underlying causes? Some of the causes could be isolation. Some of the causes could be feeling that you need to be perfect. Some of the causes are just no counselors in the schools. Not as many counselors as there used to be in the schools. There are a number of causes that could be happening to make this mental health crisis front and center. What I would do and how I would do it, what I would do is continue to advocate with your school board members to make sure you have the resources that you need. Not only that with the school board members, also try to provide a space for you in the city with the Measure L money, because I am betting everybody's going to vote yes. So I'm going to also create a space for you to be able to, for you guys all to have a space where you can come, decompress, and truly talk about those things that are affecting you. So, yeah.
Okay,
I'm so old, I don't even know how all these things that you guys need.
Thank you. Let's go to Katie.
Yeah, so I think definitely the pandemic played a big role, and I think that we're seeing the outcomes of that, as I mentioned earlier. Like, I think what happened is, we had a lot of people who are stuck at home, and as many of us know, as I know from my own personal experience, not everybody's home life is great, right? Not everybody has the resources that they need at home, or the structure that they need, and so school for so long has been that place for a lot of students. Making sure that they have the counselors and that they have the help that they need. And so when that went away, I think that really showed how fragile the system is and how fragile our safety net is as a community. And so now that people are coming back, the outcome of that is really clear to me. I also think social media plays a big role here too. Back when I was in school, there was Facebook, but nobody really used it. Now everything is on your phone all the time, and you're constantly comparing yourself to others. And you're seeing, people who present perfect versions of themselves, which we know isn't true, right? We all know that we have our own unique experiences and challenges and struggles in life, and so I think that we need to focus on helping students learn that there is a difference from what is seen online versus reality. And we also need to make sure that those resources are available here at school, that we have, again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm really interested in making sure that we have mental health resources inside the schools and working with the district to make sure that happens.
Thank you. So next we're going to go to your views on Measure O, which is known as the Emergency Shelter and Enforcement Act. I know you guys know what it is, but for the audience, I'll say that it would give city officials more power to move homeless encampments, and it would oblige local government to provide more shelter for homeless people. So the question is, what are your views on Measure O? And we'll start with Katie.
Yeah. So I'm not supporting Measure O, and the reason why I'm not supporting Measure O is it doesn't provide anything. So there's no funding source for it. We already know that that's a huge issue. The city has made it very clear that they do not have the funds to do more than what they're doing now. And it doesn't provide shelter space, it doesn't provide any housing, and it doesn't do anything, right? So, what it would do is allow individuals to go to the city and to take away needed resources. The city is fielding those calls that we could be putting towards actually opening up shelters or building housing, and instead they're doing this enforcement system. So I think that it's already hard enough for folks. They don't have anywhere to go. That's why they're on the streets. I think we need to be addressing that root cause, making sure that we're building enough affordable housing, making sure that we have shelter spaces. And the only way we're going to do that is if we have a partnership between the city and the county. What a lot of people don't know, because it got added at the last second, is there is a provision in Measure O that says that it will not move forward unless there's a formal partnership between the city and the county. Well, there isn't one. It doesn't exist yet. Nothing has been announced. And so right now, if people are voting on Measure O, they don't even know what they're voting on, right? Because we don't know what that partnership will look like or if it'll exist. And so I'm really focused on let's get at the root of the problem. We can fix this right now. We don't need to pass a ballot measure that says that we can move people around. We just need to be working together to actually provide resources for people who need it. And so that's where my focus is.
Thank you, Katie. Let's go to Tomiko.
So I am supporting O, and I believe there's a start. And so there is a partnership that I have started with the county and the city. So it's a 2x2x2. So it's 2 county officials, 2 city officials, and 2 business leaders. And so what they're doing is talking together to work through some of these issues. So there's a start. We need to do something. Some of these businesses are closing, and we just need to do something to lighten this load, not just for community members. Well, actually, everybody's a community member. The unhoused are community members. It is not healthy and safe for them to be on the streets because they are being victimized as well. So we need to figure out ways to open up the different districts, open up with all districts and have shelters in all districts. Because like I said, District 5 has quite a few, and so some of these other districts need to also open their hearts and have shelters in their district so that we can house people.
Thank you. Our next question is, we live in a city of diverse views. How will you reconcile with voters who disagree with you so that everyone feels represented by your election? And we'll go to Tomiko.
Yeah. Funny enough, as you knock on doors, you talk to a lot of people that may not agree with you. And as I knock on doors, it's a different space for me because some of the neighborhoods that I'm going into, they're not used to seeing someone that looks like me. So I'm knocking on a door and I'm really talking to them and truly speaking my truth and my lived experience in this city. and also and letting them talk their truth and how they feel about things. And I want them to know that I represent you, even though we may not look like each other, we may come from different areas of town. But I truly believe if we work together and chip at some of these things, we can truly change the trajectory of Sacramento. I want to represent everyone in this city. This is a very diverse district, and I believe it needs the best representation from someone who knows this district well. So I am always going to be available. On my website, I have my phone number, and so people call me all the time just to ask me simple questions before they mark that ballot. So I truly appreciate being able to run for the city, and I appreciate being able to talk to you all today.
Thank you. Let's go to Katie.
Yeah, some of you may know this, but I've been on the campaign trail for now 2 years. It'll be 2 years in just a few weeks, and so it has been a journey, but it's taken me at least that long to make sure I'm talking to neighbors, I'm talking to small businesses, I'm talking to nonprofits, I'm talking to faith leaders all over, because I know that my perspective is only one perspective. I'm just myself. And so in order to really represent and to lead, I believe that it took me that time to build a platform to make sure I'm hearing from everyone. Like I've heard from now thousands of people about what the biggest issues are that are concerning them. Of course, housing affordability and availability, homelessness are key, crime, and so I think that that's my philosophy on running this campaign. That's also my philosophy if elected, is making sure that I'm available and that I'm here to listen and to lead, and that I view the role of an elected leader as being a representative of the people and making sure that I'm always in line and in touch with folks about what their biggest concerns are, and so they're able to contact me as well. And so I take that commitment moving forward. Another thing that I commit to doing is creating what's called a community cabinet or community council, making sure that every single neighborhood, everyone in my district, regardless of where they come from, what they look like, what their background is, what their religion is, has a representative on this council so that I can hear from other people as there are policy decisions before me. I may not know, something that might impact the LGBTQ community. Well, I want to make sure that I'm talking to representatives from that community before I vote on something that may impact them, and that's true for all across the board. So I'm excited to be able to do that if elected. Thank you.
Thank you. And for our final question, this is more of an opportunity not about your campaign, but to speak about something that maybe would be of use to all of us and give more insight on your perspective. And it's how can we as high schoolers make change in our communities? And let's start with Katie.
Yeah, so I love this question. So I started out like in my journey doing a lot of community work. I did community organizing. I started doing that when I was really young. You have so much power you don't even know. There are more of you than there are of us, and you have more power than you think. So organizing together and acting collectively is the biggest thing that you can do. If you actually show up to city council meetings, they listen to you. Very few people actually show up. Very few people actually write in. And if you can form together on issues that are important to you and craft arguments, show up to City Hall, talk on them, you can make change. And know that your elected representatives are there for you too, regardless of if you're voting age or not. So you can call, you can write in, you can schedule an appointment with your current representative, whether it's your city council member, your board supervisor, your assembly member, and they will take your meeting. So, I think that you have that power together. Make sure that the issues that you see, you know better than anyone else what the issues that you're experiencing are, what you need help with. Make sure that you're going in and you're talking with folks and educating them on those so that you can make change. You are not powerless. You have a lot of power. So I'm excited, and I hope to see you all if I'm elected, knocking down my door and making sure that I understand what's important to you.
Thank you. Let's go to Tamiko.
The civil rights movement was changed by students. Students rallied, organized, jumped out of windows, and got arrested, and changed lives. So you guys have all the power that you need to change anything you want. Again, of course, organizing, working together, coming to meetings, going to city council meetings, coming to commission meetings. We even have youth commissioners. We have youth council. There's so many things that you guys can get involved with just to make a difference in life. So I'm excited to see what change you guys are going to make.
Thank you. That was our final question. So we're going to wrap things up with each candidate having 1 minute to make a closing statement, and then I will wrap it up a little more. But we'll start with Tamiko.
Okay. Well, thank you again for allowing me to be here today and speak to you guys. Again, I was born and raised in this city, and I really truly am here just so that I can be that voice for the city from this community. I want to make sure that you all have the resources that you need for us to be a better city. If you want to get involved with my campaign, or you can give me a call. My phone number is on the website. My email's on the website. I have a couple students that are working with me now. I truly believe that we can change Sacramento. We can make a difference. And thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Katie.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for organizing this. This is awesome. Talk about power, right? Like you put this into action and you got us here, and so you're able to hear directly from us. So I'm grateful to be here. But for me, I started this. I started on the campaign trail 2 years ago because I looked around me and I saw a city in crisis. I see homelessness on the rise. I see people being displaced from my neighborhood because they can't afford their housing. I see students struggling with their mental health, and I see crime on the rise. And I believe that we need someone that's going to come in and change things. We need to recognize that we're in a moment in time that we can right the ship. And so I'm eager to be doing this, and I hope to be part of that change. I hope that you're all part of that change too. If you want to get involved, you can go on my website, katiemaple.com. We have a volunteer section, so you can go on the Google form, you can do a canvas or a phone bank or anything like that. You can write letters. We have opportunities for everyone of every ability. So thank you so much for your time, and please do reach out to me if you have any questions at all. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to sincerely thank you both for attending and for having the courage to run for a seat on our city council. As we high schoolers move into the world as adults, we are so lucky to have such robust role models so close to home. To have a say in this race and others like it, you need to register to vote, and it's really easy to do that today or any day. So even if you're not 18, you can pre-register using the link on screen, or you can go visit the Register of Voters booth in the back, and they have plenty of lanyards and pens and other items for you to take advantage of. So be sure to check out the registration booth in the back or visit the link on screen. Again, thank you guys so much for attending, and have a